let's listen to a little bit of the Trotsky. Go ahead, Trotsky. What's up?
So I'm running in this election precisely to provide a working class alternative. It's quite striking that neither Newsom nor any of the ostensible main candidates running to replace him, none of them are actually calling for the elimination of the pandemic. They're calling for either very minor mitigation measures in terms of Newsom, or really throwing things open in terms of the Republicans and the main Democratic opponents of Newsom. So we're intervening to really provide the working class an alternative.
If David Moore gets in there, he's going to be just like Lenin and Trotsky. He's just going to take the power. In fact, Trotsky, they never ran for office. So this is an interesting strategy for a Trotskyist to run for office. I want to just go back and forth. This is from the San Diego Union Tribune.com. And it's a question and answer with David Moore. A question and answer with David Moore and some unknown person. We're just going to pretend it was the whole goddamn newspaper. So the whole goddamn newspaper, San Diego Union Tribune. Okay. So I don't even know the question, actually. We just start out with an answer here. We go straight to an answer. But I like how it begins. Okay. And we could do a Kevin Faulconer, one right after this. Got my Tom Ritchie mug here, right? Wet the old whistle. To address the issue, I gotta get my David Moore voice. To address the issue of police violence, we must address the social role of the police as first and foremost. Armed defenders of private property. As the social crisis confronting the workers across the state and country deepens, the police increasingly act as an armed, occupying force with military surplus equipment, driving out a homeless encampment here, evicting a family there, keeping undesirables away from downtown areas. George Floyd was killed over the mere suspicion of using a counterfeit $20 bill. Searching for the perpetrator of a trivial crime, the police carried out a heinous one. In order to actually decrease crime, the police should be disarmed, and we need a massive shift of funding from law enforcement and incarceration to social services. California's prisons remain under judicial conservatorship because of unconstitutional overcrowding. It costs roughly $81,000 a year to keep an inmate in prison instead of locking up nonviolent offenders. That money should be spent on social services to prevent crime. Why should Gavin Newsom be recalled? Why? The recall campaign has been overwhelmingly funded by far-right forces seeking to overturn even the most minimal public health measures to contain the pandemic. For that reason, I'm calling for voters to vote no on the recall. How would you have handled the pandemic differently than Newsom? And what will you do if elected? Should vaccines be mandated? Are you vaccinated? And when did you get vaccinated? Newsom's response to the pandemic has been limited to half measures that place almost the entire burden on workers and small business owners while guaranteeing renewed outbreaks. His push to reopen in-person K-12 instruction in the face of a new surge is completely reckless. What we need is a cohesive statewide plan as part of an international plan to actually eradicate COVID-19. To contain the Delta surge, we need shutdowns of non-essential businesses with compensation to workers and small businesses, along with a massive investment in healthcare, contact tracing, and safety measures for essential business. As a teacher, I've been vaccinated since March. Will be your approach to housing and homelessness safe? Safe and secure housing is a fundamental social right essential for someone to be a fully functioning member of society. There are roughly 5 vacant houses in the state for each homeless person, many owned by banks after foreclosures or other financial companies for speculation. We cannot solve the problem of housing costs without making inroads into this immense wealth, whether by taxes, eminent domain, or other measures. In order to make this housing available to ordinary workers to address homelessness, we need a housing first approach, as keeping a job and maintaining physical and mental health are much easier while housed. The recent Los Angeles measure to criticize homelessness is precisely the wrong approach. Well, what is your top education priority and how would you implement it? Top priority for the remainder of the term of office is effective distance learning to prevent the mass infection of children with the Delta variant. In order to safely allow the students in most need, homeless, special education, chronic truancy, etc., to receive some in-person instruction, the majority of students must stay remote. To make that effective, we need to increase school funding in order to lower class size and increase family outreach. We must also provide financial and technical support to families so that they can support their child's participation in school. Well, how will you address the state's climate emergency? What are your plans for energy demands, wildfire risk, and drought? Like the pandemic, climate change can only be decisively tackled through a global effort to put the needs of workers over the profits of corporations. What we can do as a state is use our economic weight to fight for a global response while mitigating the impacts. The first step in joining a global effort to contain climate change is to unify the state's utilities into a single public utility so that renewable energy can be effectively managed and coordinated across the region. Instead of bailing out PG&E from the economic weight of its criminal responsibility for wildfires, the state should be taking it over and putting the billions of dollars it had been paying in dividends to shareholders into maintaining and modernizing the energy grid. Regarding drought, we must recognize that irrigation for agriculture is responsible for around 50% of the water consumption statewide. I heard it was 80%. Irrigation for agriculture, modernizing the irrigation systems and switching to some more water-efficient crops will make the state's farm economy more drought-resistant while significantly reducing overall water consumption. Well, what kind of car do you drive? What changes have you made in your own life in response to the climate emergency? I drive a small hatchback. Ever since I was a teenager, I've tried to be personally conscious around recycling and water usage. But climate change cannot be significantly addressed at the level of consumers, as the vast majority of pollution is coming from large-scale corporations. Only by tackling the efforts of corporations to profit through reckless environmental practices can we manage climate change. Are there any tax increases you support? Oh yeah, I support increased taxes on the income, wealth, and property of the state's multi-millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires. What new immigration policies do you support, if any? What changes would you like to see in the U.S.-Mexico border policy, and how would you address the border pollution issues? How would you address the border pollution issues? I support open borders. This country is founded on open immigration and the simple conception that all men, and only men, are created equal. The thought that we should be turning away people who want to live and work in the U.S. is anti-democratic and inhumane. If we put to social services the money currently spent by Customs and Border Patrol brutalizing immigrants and CIA propping up dictatorships and the military bombing other countries, there would be more than enough to house and feed and educate and provide health care to immigrant and native-born workers. Well, how would your approach to gun legislation be different than California's existing approach? California's gun laws attempt to narrow technical solution to the massive social problem of gun violence in general, and mass shootings in particular. We must address the social needs of violence. In order to make our children actually safe, that includes eradicating poverty, vastly increasing access to housing, health care, and particularly mental care. We currently live in a society that's been continuously at war for the past 20 years. Presidents are now in the habit of ordering extrajudicial assassinations, while the police kill roughly 1,000 people a year. And the state and federal government are removing public health measures in the middle of a pandemic because profits are more important than lives. It's far cool to think that a younger generation immersed in official brutality will be kept safe by restricting guns. Guns? What the hell's a gun? You know I mean gun, but... Well, in the wake of George Floyd's murder, what criminal justice changes do you support? And then the article just ends. It just ends, just like that. Maybe that was the first question to begin with. So let's go on to the next one. Daniel Watts, recalled candidate for California governor, coming up.